So I started this YouTube channel 6 years ago in 2017 when I was in my final year of medical school.
Hello everyone, my name is Ali and this is my first attempt at a vlog.
I made around 1 or 2 videos a week for the whole year and then continued while I worked full-time as a junior doctor in the UK's National Health Service until this YouTube business started doing well enough on its own that I was able to quit my job in 2021. Since then, I've had more time and more help as my team has grown, but over the last 6 years, I've learned a lot about being a YouTuber and especially how to make it all work in only 5 to 10 hours per week.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So in this video, I want to share 8 surprising habits that have helped me over the years and that will hopefully help you too. So imagine you're meeting someone in a McDonald's, but they're running a few minutes late. Let's say they're 7 minutes late for their appointment with you. And you're sitting in a McDonald's, you haven't ordered yet, and you're just kind of waiting in that time. Now, if you're like most people, you would get out your phone and you would randomly scroll Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or whatever the social media app of your choice is. But one habit that I learned from the author Matthew Dix, who's since become a friend, is that you could be making 7 minutes worth of progress in whatever creative endeavor you want to work on. If you're writing a book, for example, in those 7 minutes, you could probably write maybe 10 or 12 sentences, and a book is just made up of 10 or 12 sentences repeated a few hundred times. In my case, being a YouTuber, I found those 7 minutes a lot while I was at work. There would be a few minutes here and there in between seeing patients, in between waiting for blood results, in between waiting for a scan to arrive. And yes, some of the time I'd just be scrolling on my phone, but most of the time I would try my best to open up the notes app on my phone or on my computer and just take some notes on a new video idea or something I could share with my audience. Now, one of my favorite TV shows growing up was Avatar: The Legend of Aang. And if you've seen it, it follows this journey of this guy named Aang, who is an airbender. And then as the series progresses, he learns how to master the elements of water and earth and fire. Now, one of the reasons why watching Avatar was so fun and so addictive was because we as the viewers, we are seeing Aang's journey in leveling up. He's going to a new place and he's learning a new skill. He's going to Ba Sing Se and he's learning how to earthbend over there, and he's encountering challenges along the way, but he's leveling up. And there's something really satisfying about seeing a character in a fictional TV show or in a book or in a movie leveling up their abilities over time. And so habit number 2 that's contributed to my success on YouTube is having this attitude of trying to consistently level up and trying to, in a way, treat myself as a character in a video game. What are the skills that I need to learn to level up? So early on in my YouTube days, it was getting more comfortable talking on camera. As I progressed, it was adding in more editing pizzazz and learning how to do interesting transitions and animations. Then over time, as I built the business around my YouTube channel, it was leveling up in things like sales and marketing and operations and delegations and hiring and managing and leading a team. And even now, 6 years into this YouTube thing, one thing I always think about is, what is the next area of improvement? Because fundamentally, building a successful YouTube channel isn't just about knowing how to make good videos, it's also about building a sustainable business to support the YouTube channel so that you're not entirely reliant just on things like AdSense and brand deals for all of your income. Now, if you're interested in potentially becoming a YouTuber yourself or growing your YouTube channel if you have one already, then you might like to check out a completely free scorecard that me and my team have designed, the YouTube Growth Scorecard. And this is a totally free quiz. You just click the link in the video description, you can take the quiz and it's gonna ask you a bunch of questions and then it will kind of diagnose what are the specific areas and give you a score for the different areas of growth on YouTube, and then give you some recommendations of resources that you can use to take your YouTube channel to the next level, depending on what level of experience you're at. So let's say you're going into a Starbucks store. You could be going into a Starbucks in New York or in London or in Timbuktu, but you'd basically be getting exactly the same experience. They've got pretty much exactly the same menu with a couple of regional variations. The coffee basically tastes the same. They've got the same suppliers. They've got the same equipment, the same logo, the same kind of general dark wood, mahogany kind of vibe. And the reason that you're getting exactly the same experience with every Starbucks you go into, Starbucks, McDonald's, Five Guys, any kind of franchise, they create an experience through systems. And this habit is something I started adopting 2 years into my YouTube journey in 2019 when I first read a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. The thing that makes a small business succeed beyond the kind of work that its owner or founder can do is building systems, and building systems as if you are trying to generate a franchise. And so the way I've been thinking of it since then is, how can I create a business and a YouTube channel where the results are dependent on the system rather than dependent on the individual people? Because when you go into a Starbucks, right, you can put any old 16-year-old or 17-year-old into the position of the barista, give them a basic amount of training, and now they're delivering the identical experience to the customer wherever in the world the customer happens to be. And thinking in those ways, thinking in terms of building systems and building operations and processes, again, many years ago, I would have thought that that stuff was really, really boring, but it was one of the primary habits that when I started incorporating into my YouTube channel, really made everything take off and really made it way easier to stay consistent, because now the system is doing the heavy lifting rather than me personally as an individual, especially while I'm working full time. So in life, there are two types of games that we play. There are finite games, and then there are infinite games. So finite games are played with the intention of winning. Something like football is a finite game. There is a scoreboard, there are players, it's competitive, and the objective is to win the game. But there are some games in life that are infinite games, where the intention of the game is not to win, but actually to continue playing. Hanging out with your friends, for example, is an infinite game. The reason we are hanging out with our friends is purely for the purpose of hanging out with our friends. There is no ulterior motive, there is no game, and it's not really finite. In an ideal world, we want to be hanging out with friends and family and this kind of stuff for the rest of our lives. We're playing an infinite game in that sense. And so one of the habits that I found has really contributed to my, longevity on YouTube, because I've been doing this stuff for 6 years now, is that almost from day one, I was thinking about YouTube as an infinite game. It wasn't a case of, I need to chase this particular milestone, or I want to hit this many subscribers or this much revenue, or I wasn't even thinking I want to quit my job. Because all of these are finite games. Instead, the way I think of it is like, if I won the lottery, would I still continue making YouTube videos? The answer is yes, because I enjoy sharing. Perfect, so if that's the case, then what are the sorts of YouTube videos that I would want to make, even if I wasn't trying to make any money from it? If building a YouTube channel and a business is for me an infinite game, i.e. a game I want to continue playing, rather than a game I'm trying to win, what are the decisions that I'm making right now that are gonna contribute to that? And that means, for example, not taking on sponsorships that I don't believe in, because that's a finite game type of thing. That's like eroding trust with my audience for the sake of money, and that's like very finite game thinking. But it also means that when I'm making a video and when I'm planning videos, I'm not trying to do it because I think the video will do well. Instead, I'm thinking, you know what, even if I didn't care about the numbers, especially if I didn't care about the numbers, what is the video that I would make? Now, this is a story that I return to a lot, and it's a story of a pottery class, and the teacher of the pottery class, let's call him Brian, splits the class into two groups. For half of the class, he says they need to make one pot in 30 days, a single pot in 30 days, but then for the other half of the class, he says that they have to make 30 pots in 30 days, so one pot every day for 30 days. So we have a group that's focused on quality of a single pot, and we have a group that's focused on quantity, just making loads of them. And at the end of the 30 days, he gets a group of judges, and they figure out what are the top 10 highest quality pots. And surprisingly, without exception, every single one of those 10 pots did not come from the quality group. It did not come from the group that was just making a single pot and trying to make it perfect. All of the 10 best pots came from the quantity group, the group that was just trying to make a single pot every day. And I think about this story a lot, and this was so pivotal in my early days of my YouTube channel, where the temptation for perfectionism is there. Even today, the temptation to try and be perfectionist with the videos is there, where I'm like, oh, but I could spend a whole month working on a video instead of making, 1 or 2 videos a week where I can just speak from the heart and talk about whatever I want. And then I remember the pottery class habit. I remember this idea that often, magic comes from just doing a thing repeatedly. And as long as the thing is providing value, it's not necessarily true that spending 30 times as long on a single pot or a single video will actually make that any better than doing 30 of them in 30 days, for example. So I came across a podcast where they were talking about birdsong. And birdsong is one of those things, like, there's birds in the background right now. But I have no idea what the birds are singing. Like, I couldn't possibly tell you what the difference is between the different types of birdsong. To me, it's just, oh, the birds are tweeting. That's kind of fun. But there are some people in the world who actually take a little bit of time to learn how to identify birdsong. And for them, as they're walking about in their day-to-day life, they're not just experiencing a massive birdsong, they're experiencing the different types of it. Because they've got that firmware update in their brain, they're thinking, ooh, that's a lark, and that's a robin, and that's a sparrow. And it adds color to their experience of life. And I think this kind of broadly applies as a creator or as a YouTuber as well. In that when you start creating stuff on the internet and putting yourself out there and sharing things online, it's almost like you've got a firmware update in your mind, where before, the things that you consumed, like books and articles and TV shows and podcasts and like movies and all this kind of stuff, was just a mass of content that you were consuming. But when you switch to being a creator and you have that firmware update in your mind, you start thinking of it kind of like the birdsong stuff. You start seeing ideas everywhere. You're like, oh, I've just watched, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, but there's an interesting idea there, like the story of Neville giving Harry's gillyweed sparks an idea for the book that I'm writing. And actually, in the book that I'm writing, we're including that as a little bit of a quick story. And so really this habit is about identifying what are the things that you're already listening to, that you're already consuming in your day-to-day life, and how can you take advantage of those things and use them as inspiration to generate ideas for the creative project that you're working on, whether it's a business or a YouTube channel or even in your day job. So a flywheel is this thing in engineering where it takes ages to get going, but then once it's gotten going, then it's practically unstoppable. And I like to keep this image of a flywheel in mind because especially in the early days of a YouTube channel or any kind of business, you're putting in a lot of effort and you're not seeing very many results. But in a way, you have to be patient and keep in mind that the fact that the flywheel exists, and hopefully over time, this, you can be putting in the same amount of effort, but now the flywheel is just spinning at like a continuous rate. So for example, these days on my YouTube channel, I'm not putting in any more effort from, like, at least me personally, than I was 5 years ago. But 5 years ago, my videos were getting, I don't know, a couple hundred views, and now they're getting a couple 100,000 views. So it's the same amount of effort, but just thanks to compounding over time, the flywheel effect has taken hold, and it means that the same amount of effort can lead to highly leveraged results. And the key thing to keep in mind is, I like a quote from Gary Vaynerchuk, which is, micro speed, macro patience. So in the moment, you're doing things like the McDonald's method. You're like making the use of those 7 minutes. You're trying to squeeze out the video here and there in your spare time. You're like operating quite fast in the micro, but in the macro, you've got a lot of patience. You're not expecting results to come super quickly. You're focusing on just feeding the flywheel and then allowing compounding to take hold over time. So one of my favorite series of books is the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And there is a quote from there that I always return to. And it's one of the ideals, the first ideal of the Knights Radiant, which is this like group of knights in the series. And their first ideal is life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. And it's that final component that I think about a lot and is a habit that I've incorporated into my life. Journey before destination. And that means that for something like this, the reason I've been able to do YouTube for the last 6 years is because I've been focusing on the journey rather than the destination. Again, it's not about hitting a certain subscriber count. It's not about hitting a certain revenue count or quitting a job or anything like that. It's about trying my best to enjoy the journey and trying my best to share things online that I think would be helpful to at least one person. To the point where I literally have a post-it note on my computer monitor that says, what would this look like if it were fun? And I find that like whenever I see that, which is like every time I look at my monitor, I just take a step back and I think, am I going into a mode that's too serious? That's like putting a lot of importance and like gravitas on this thing of making a YouTube video and like blocking my energy? Or am I opening up and am I thinking, you know what? The point of doing YouTube is not to make money. It's simply to do YouTube, to make videos that help people while having fun. And so if it's not fun, then what's the point of doing it? And if you enjoyed this video and you want more on YouTube strategy, including a step-by-step guide to what I would do if I was starting a YouTube channel now instead of 6 years ago, then check out this video over here, which is my 3-part blueprint to growing a YouTube channel completely from scratch. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Bye-bye.